Yo, what's going on, guys? It's the Chadmeister, Breadwinner, Ultra Chad, Echo XP here. And before we get into the video, I would like to tell y'all about the giveaway I'm hosting on Twitter. Logan the Chad, it's on the screen right now. I'm giving away $25 on Twitter if certain requirements are met. Go on Twitter for the details and enjoy the video. So, what's going on, guys? I know I did my intro twice. I'll be giving y'all my top 10 favorite anime ever. And before getting in the list, I think I should firstly explain the criteria I used to make this top 10, and also say my rules. Firstly, the criteria I used was 50% what the series meant to me, 25% how good the series actually was, basically what I liked about it, what drew me to it, and objectively how good it was, and lastly, 25% was based on the flaws. The rules are, I could add movies, shows, manga, or anything related to anime. If I say a series, I mean the series overall. For example, Naruto has Shippuden and the original. This list does include spoilers, so if you haven't seen the anime I mentioned, skip over the video to these timestamps, and if not, enjoy the list. So actually, before we get into the main list, I'm gonna give 2 honorable mentions out that didn't make the list, but definitely could have. So my first one is Dragon Ball Z, which is without a doubt the most impactful anime I've ever seen. It's my first and will always have a special place in my heart. However, if I take objective quality into account, DBZ isn't up there with the following shows. And the second one is one that I just finished, and it's Clannad. And not gonna lie, it probably should be on here, but I wrote this script like 5 months ago and I hadn't seen Clannad yet. But yeah, let's get into the list. Who'd have thought an anime about playing piano would make this list? I don't even play music or have a real emotional attachment to many artists, except for J. Cole. Nah, there's a few others. Anyway, this series got me more into music and was my first real introduction into the romantic/drama genre, and this was a great starter and made me really sad watching it. It's about a boy named Kosei getting over his past traumas and is taught to live life better by, ironically, someone who is dying. This show pulled off everything it wanted to very well and was a very entertaining watch and kept me excited to keep on binging. The message of living life to your fullest really hit home and showed me that getting out of your comfort zone is not a bad thing. Now, I'm not here to give in-depth reviews, so I'll keep these likes and dislikes parts brief. First off, my likes were the messages and themes of the show, as well as the great emotional scenes that didn't feel cheesy. My dislikes with this series were how obvious the show's plot would be, as well as the sometimes bad writing. Other than that, the show was awesome and definitely deserved to be on here. This show was so fun to watch. I love watching shows with great plots, great fights, and great endings, and this totally held up. I saw it as number 1 on my anime list and questioned it if it was really that great, and I just said fuck it and watched it in a week or 2. It gave me one of my favorite characters in Roy Mustang, as well as some of the saddest scenes like Mayhew's death and Edward figuring out that it wasn't possible to bring his mother back. They also had some of the cleanest fights in anime, like Roy Mustang vs. Lust and Edward vs. Father. I don't think this show is number 1, but it's for sure a classic and easily top 10 worth. So now with all that positivity, let me get into the negatives. This show kinda starts out slow in my opinion, and some parts feel a little dragged on, but that's literally it. And it would be a lot higher if not for how great the other anime on this list are. My god, this movie is genuinely near perfection. It was genuinely a joy to watch, and I know I used that twice in a row. That was bad script writing. And at the same time, it was a really depressing movie to watch. These characters were so damn relatable and just had such a realistic feeling. They all had distinct personalities, and it just made the ending way more sweet with how these characters developed and how damn lovable they became. The animation and the scripting were superb. The main problem I have with a lot of anime is that the characters will word things to add dramatic effect, but sometimes it just comes out as cringy. All the crying, yelling, laughing, every emotion felt so realistic and just seemed like normal people. The only problem with me putting this near flawless movie up higher is the fact that it's a movie and I'm not attached to the characters as much as, say, an Itachi or an L or a Light, something along those lines. So that's the only problem I had, which is not a problem. It's literally just emotional attachment. Y'all might not know, seeing as I haven't talked about JoJo too much on the channel, and anyone who is a JoJo's fan can't shut the fuck up about it. But I'm a huge fan of JoJo's. JoJo is really an anime all on its own. Every single thing in the show is absolutely unique, from designs, color switching, to fights, power systems, how the story develops over time. There isn't a single anime like JoJo's, and I think that's why I like it so much. It is the most out there anime with hilarious and at the same time really dark scenes. The only issue was part 3, which I hated, dragged on way too much, and some of those fights should not have lasted an entire episode. It just made this story feel pretty slow at times, but most of the random stand user fights were pretty good. The only problem with JoJo's again is part 3, but yeah. I would say Anohana is the most disliked anime on this list just because it doesn't have any fights or any major subject like piano around it. Or maybe disliked isn't the correct word, more least popular. But it's about friends coming back together to send their dead friend back to heaven so she can rest in peace. Anohana might just be here because it was a perfect anime at the perfect time, and maybe it wasn't as good as I thought it was. But nevertheless, it was just a fantastic ride with absolutely amazing message behind it. I was so emotionally invested in every character, and the show just felt really realistic with a fantastic story. I loved watching all the beautiful scenery and the incredible OST that this show had. I really recommend it to anyone who hasn't watched it. The problems I have with the show are kinda what I mentioned in the silent voice spot. The only issue I have with it is the fact that some of the parts just felt more goofy than sad to me. For example, the Yukiyatsu in a dress scene just kind of was like weird rather than sad. I understood what they were going for, but it was just kind of eh. This is the second and last movie on the list, and everything I said about silent voice applies here because goddamn is this movie sad. Them trying to evacuate all the people from the area, I forgot the name of it, but y'all know, was just heart-wrenching, and when it seemed like it didn't succeed, it genuinely hit me. Of course, it did end up succeeding, making me as happy as any other joyful movie I've watched. I think that this movie was genuinely perfect, and the only flaw is the same one in Silent Voice, where I didn't get absurdly attached to the characters, but I was still very, very attached. So, if I was just including this show, this probably wouldn't make the list. However, the manga is literally a masterpiece. Everything is flawlessly executed. I seriously think Attack on Titan doesn't get the recognition it deserves. And I say that because people only really talked about the first season, and there are some people who talked about the second and third, but they didn't get nearly as much hype as the first season did. This is kind of their fault for taking so long to drop season 2. Hype kind of died down, but still, I don't see many people talk about the second and third season. The manga, though, is genuinely one of the most quality pieces of work you could associate with anime, because, oh my god, everything in the war arc has just been flawless so far. There are so many twists and turns, and I love the fact that the show doesn't have any plot armor at all. Overall, it's a great anime, and the only problem I have is the fact that Season 2 took forever. No, I'm joking. But truthfully, I think the execution could have been better on some things, but it's damn near perfect. Naruto was my favorite anime up until a year or two ago, but you have to respect that show. It and Dragon Ball Z were my shit growing up, and the only reason DBZ isn't on here is because it genuinely wasn't an amazing anime. It just has a lot of emotional attachment with me. Anyway, Naruto was just a perfect anime for me to start on, which it wasn't my starter, but it was one of my first. And just got me so hooked to the point where I became a major weeb growing up, which I'm not as big anymore, but yeah, I was. There are a lot of flaws like the stupid amount of filler and the amount of plot holes this show has, but that doesn't matter to me that much just because of how good the actual main show and fights were. No anime has better fights than Naruto. Now moving on to YuYu Hakusho. I just recently finished this show and it just made me feel like a kid watching Naruto or Dragon Ball Z again. It was like watching Dragon Ball Z, but if DBZ's plot was actually good and actually followed a proper story and themes instead of Goku beats strong enemy, stronger enemy appears over and over. The cast of YuYu Hakusho was so strong, and Yusuke made me laugh so hard sometimes. But my two favorite were Botan and Hiei just because of how badass Hiei was and how real Botan was. Like, she is for real always there for Yusuke no matter what, and she is funny as hell too. YuYu Hakusho had one main flaw, which is the fact that Yusuke was just so much stronger than his friends at some point, when I think they all should have been somewhat relatives, but that's the only real issue I had. These series are so damn similar to each other, and both are series I consider 10 out of 10, so I put them at the same ranking, and will give the same points for why I like both of them, because the points apply for both really. The main characters are both in my top 7 or 10 characters of all time, and have a great supporting cast with characters who are also in my top 10, namely L and C2. L is my favorite character in these series, so if 4 of these characters are some of my favorites ever, you know the anime has to be good. The plot for both shows are extremely similar, and just features some of the most intricate and perfectly executed stories in any anime. The arc where Light loses his memories and we see his plan was absolutely genius, while the arc where Lelouch goes to war with his brother and has one of the best endings in anime history is just an absolute pleasure to watch. The problem with Death Note for most people is the Nier arc, which I actually enjoyed, but I could see the issues with it. Nier is literally always correct and doesn't have the moments that L does, where he shows a funny personality or gets something wrong to show he is human and not just a robot. While the problem with Code Geass for fans was the middle section R2, which again, I actually quite liked. I think some parts were boring, but it just had suspense, like the scenes where Lelouch's copy had to kiss Shirley so she didn't see the base. Both of these shows were so good, and I love them. Now, if you've been subscribed to me for even like a month, I don't think you should be surprised at all. It's Hunter x Hunter. Come on. And I've mentioned this in the past that this anime is and probably always will be my favorite. It's a shonen for the reason that I love shonen and takes out everything I don't like about shonen. This show doesn't have many fights, but all the fights in this show are incredible. Killua is my top 3 favorite anime characters ever. Gon is a great protagonist, Kurapika is great, and Hisoka as well. Hisoka. When I first started watching this show, I finished over 50 episodes in one day just because of how amazing it is, which, if you don't know, is over 16 hours of just straight binging Hunter x Hunter in one day. The plot is amazing, and this show doesn't suffer from plot armor. The Chimera Ant arc is the best arc I've ever seen, and this show has the best power system in any anime. The show is just a never-ending ride of pure happiness and just a joy to watch. I literally have no flaws with this show, except the pacing could sometimes be about but that's about it, and it's very rare. Thank y'all for watching. I'll see y'all later. Peace out. Thank you so much for 100 subs. Wow, I just hit that. Thank you. See ya.